Peace, what's up? This is Jarrell with Quantum Light Consciousness. Today we're going to talk about how to avoid getting triggered and kind of like sidestepping that entire triggered frequency. It's kind of a funny topic for me just because it's like a mental rehab the entire earth is going through, and I'm just kind of watching it and seeing how like the entire society, planet, globe, world, like the consciousness as a whole is co-collectively becoming more and more aware of itself. And like these puns and memes, they all kind of just like make themselves apparent out of nowhere, along with different types of phrases and meanings and words. So one of the words is the word trigger. It's not really something that you've heard referred to like, oh, that before, it's kind of just like, oh yeah, well that triggered this event and then this triggered that to happen. But the word trigger recently has been applied to people and how people are more triggered in life when certain things happen to them. And it's like, oh, did that trigger you? Or, oh, that's a trigger for me. Or, that's one of her or his triggers, It's also been like a thing that has been used in sales. Like after you get a sale, you kind of like train your mind and your brain to react positively to put you in that law of attraction, towards feeling good after you make a sale, kind of like a reward program, like into the biochemistry of your body. But, it's kind of like more or less negative is what we're talking about, a trigger that will put you off balance, put you off track, and just get those like negative emotions going, when something happens to you that is like the same as, or that is similar to something negative that had happened to you in the past. Kind of goes off as a trigger in your mind. So the way triggers work for people is like biomemory and the neurochemistry and your brain matter and your nervous system. All that is wired. The center of your nervous system is in the center, it's like through the center of your brain, the vagus nerve. And so when you're hit with a negative frequency and your vagus nerve picks that up, you're basically off a trigger, and you are not liable to be in control of your thoughts and your emotions that happen next. It's kind of like a little PTSD type of deal thing. Like, it's like somebody says like a certain word to you, like, oh, like you're a loser, or oh, you're lazy, or something like that. It kind of triggers you, or it triggers something to go off in you, and then you feel all these past negative thoughts, emotions, come back based off circumstances that, you feel like you might be a little bit insecure in those areas. Or it could be anything, like, somebody could call you fat or ugly, or, whatever it is, or you could just be watching somebody on a show and then they call somebody fat or ugly, and it kind of goes off in you, like, because the consciousness is all collected, it's all collectively connected. It's just like, when one person feels something, you're apt to feel it back because you're made of the same, type of chemistry, Yeah, the way to combat triggers is, if you see yourself being triggered and you might be triggered, or you're liable to be triggered, the best way to do it, to avoid it all, is know that triggers are basically utilized, and they take effect when you are either consciously judging yourself or others, or you're unconsciously judging yourself or others. And when you can stop judging yourself or others, consciously or unconsciously, you can totally supersede and clear the trigger, because that's basically what is getting that frequency to have a negative effect on you. So a trigger could be anything. It could literally be any type of circumstance happening, or action that happens around you, or anywhere. So there's a lot of things that can trigger a person, and those types of triggers can elicit a different response depending on the person. So it could be anything. Like just sitting here, I had 3 different things happen to me as I was waiting for like this second video to be ready for me to film it. I'm sitting here tapping the table, and a huge spider just like drops from underneath the table onto like the underneath framing of the table, and now it's just like sitting there. That could trigger somebody, but you choose not to be triggered by it. Second thing is I hit the home button on my phone, and it says, "Oh, send mom a card." Like, today's my mom's birthday. How the frick does Samsung know it's my mom's birthday? Like, that's beyond me. Like, that could trigger something. That could trigger somebody. But I choose not to be triggered by it. And the third thing is, early in the video, I was basically talking and somebody just like screamed like all the way across like the field over there. That could trigger something in somebody. It didn't trigger me. So it really is a state of being. It's a state of being to understand that whole types of shit is going to happen around you, and you have no control over it. All you control is how you feel, your response, not a reaction. And to be fair, it's really good to know the types of technologies that are being used against the people, by the government and by, the secret military or whatnot, through the technology. So, before we get into like, conspiracy theory, it's good to know that, what conspiracy theory is. It's just the word conspiracy theory is just a psyop word that was implanted in the consciousness after Kennedy was assassinated. So if Kennedy was actually assassinated by the government, the word conspiracy theory is actually just a false, made up word used to gaslight people. So after the 1940s, when the U.S. government allegedly won World War II, they basically were able to utilize the same type of technologies that the Nazis had, and unfortunately it's utilized on the people. And what they do is they take most frequencies, the radio waves, the music, the television waves, the Wi-Fi, all of it, and they tune it to 440 instead of 432. 432 hertz is actually in resonance with the entire universe and with the human system, the human electromagnetic system, at harmony. But what they do is they jacked it up to 440, which is out of resonance, and which is kind of why a lot of people around the globe are always just immediately triggered when anything happens to them that's kind of just outside of their normal mundane, routine or functioning. It's a lot of reasons why a lot of people just kind of have, are very on edge, especially in the city. In the cities, it can be absolutely crazy, inner city especially. People are wired to be triggered, at the drop of a hat, drop of a dime. So when you understand that, you can really, get around that, because they actually do those types of frequency blasts at night, with cell phone towers. And I've spoken about this in my other videos. You can look at it. If you don't believe it, it's up to you. If you're energetically sensitive, it's not a question. So this is for those energetically sensitive people, and for the people who care, about what goes on in the world and what they can do about, bettering their minds, their emotions, and their thoughts and their inner reality. So like anything could be a trigger, and when you're triggered, you're not liable to have control over what happens. See, all these chunks could be a trigger, but I'm not triggered, You just have to know that you are you inside yourself preeminently, and when you exist there beforehand, anything can happen around you, and you're just fine. It's just like, whatever. Of course, you'll be tested. Your limits will always be tested, and there always will be some type of effort on your hand to keep yourself calm. and stable and balanced on the inside. To avoid triggers, you just make sure that, doesn't matter what anybody is doing. Somebody could be walking down the street, naked with like a shoe on their head, like whatever, like that's pretty like wild for somebody to like imagine or look at. But like you see all types of crazy shit like that in New York City. A lot of people are just kind of turned off by it, and then they're so triggered, like subconsciously, like all the time, they just like nothing shocks them anymore, and they're just constantly in that low state. That's not where you want to be, but like picture that just like totally clear. You've seen everything, you've seen it all, and the most horrible shit could happen in front of your face. Not that has happened, and it's not gonna have any effect, because you are not going to judge what happens. Because when you judge what happens, you become congruent with that frequency. You're saying, oh, that's my frequency because I'm reacting towards that frequency. When you react, instead of respond with discernment and say, that's not my frequency, or that has nothing to do with me, or, oh, that's interesting, that person does that, without any bias, you are not integrating with that frequency. You're totally staying detached. So that's the key. No judgment, no fear, and just discernment of yourself, where you are in your emotional body. So that's just a quick, tip that I currently have figured it out. And it goes for any area in life, Also, in dream time, moving into fourth density, it's all interconnected, everything. So if you want to move up in your dreams, you want astral projection, you can't judge, because once you judge, you get attachments on you, and those attachments follow you throughout, your waking days. When people try to trigger you, or when people are going off of their triggers, and you are trying not to be triggered, it's important to know the psychology behind that. I like to call it fourth density psychology. It's not what schools teach, it's kind of just like what truly is like the cause and effect of, psychological function. So when people are triggered, what they're doing is overlaying their values onto themselves via another person. So if somebody were to, like we said earlier, or, if somebody were to call somebody a name or treat somebody else, differently or discriminately, you aren't triggered, because you know that they have some type of imbalance that they're working on themselves, and they are either not aware of, or they choose to project onto others as themselves. So it's like, I remember one time I used to work valet in the inner city, and lady, she had she had something going on with her, and she dropped her car off, and I wasn't even the one to take the car, and she comes back with the car with a dent on it, and she walks up to me, she's like, "You dead in my car, you dead in my shit, you dead in my shit," like you did it, it was you, I'm gonna call cops, let me see your manager. She was flying off the handle. I was like, lady, I didn't even drive the car. And ladies, people are just out of their minds. They get triggered. It's like they need a trigger, and they decide to be triggered as it happens, and they kind of just roll with it. And when you're in a situation like that, say at work or anywhere, you just have to know. You have to know yourself. You have to be in your own conviction, and know that people are not in control of their thoughts and emotions, guys. Like, it's serious. Like, look at the world. Look how the world is run. It's run by negative ego, totally and completely. Not to say it's like doomsday, but it gets out of control. Even in workplaces, and I'm sure a lot of you can agree to that. So just remember that it's a psychological thing, and it's an emotional thing that goes off, and it's like, I don't want to say like a bomb, but it goes off like a snap, like a little, like firecracker, and then all those all those endorphins like fire off negatively, or you know, that chemistry just goes, and it's just like they're on a different wavelength, and then there's nothing you can really do because they're totally out of, I don't want to say out of their mind, but they're in like their mind state of a completely different reality that's totally not in tune with what is, you know, actually relevant to rationality. This is just like a quick video. It got kind of long, but I really needed to like kind of just like I guess, you know, just go into these things because they're important, because I know a lot of people out there are triggered. It's like the new thing, like trigger happy people out there, and people who are like a person who are, you know, liable to be triggered, or who have been triggered or are easily triggered by others, or people who have to be around people who are easily triggered by anything, and then they have to deal with it. So stay strong out there, stay calm, meditate at least once a day, you know, 10, 20 minutes, anything, and that'll make a huge difference, I'm telling you guys. All right, much love. I'm available for sessions at quantumlight.net, intuitive healing, intuitive coaching, and some free sessions too. So thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.